And then we're going to present. There we go. All right, so we're going to promote safety through preventing firefighter cancer with the encapsulatory agent and with NFPA 18A. A little bit about hazard control technologies. We've been around since 1997. We are U.S. born and raised chemical manufacturer. That's how we started. And then through the years, we've become this really worldwide, multifaceted company. We do not only fire suppression, but we can do vapor mitigation for other industries, contamination control. And if you have a problem, we have so many different firefighters, business owners, engineers. We can find an answer to just about any question you have about hazardous materials and trying to find and mitigate their dangers. A little bit about me. I became an encapsulated agent about 3 years ago. I have about 32 years of experience in emergency services. A few years ago, when my children were born, I transitioned out of active field as an EMS training officer and a lieutenant for a small rural combination department. I still volunteer as a firefighter, part-time paramedic, but I teach full-time, and I'm a big advocate for firefighter safety. My mission is to advocate for safer firefighting practices, and I believe it wholeheartedly that F500 encapsulated agent will do that. The reason I say this is because my son, who is actually in my classes, it will be a 4th generation firefighter, and I want him to have the safest opportunities, and using F500 is one of those. So we have, as firefighters, we have the short-term health risks such as injuries, burns, and then we have long-term risks such as cardiovascular and now this big focus on cancer. We need to address those and prevent them and not be reactive. So according to the Firefighter Cancer Network, we as firefighters have a 9% greater chance of being diagnosed with cancer and a 14% higher risk of dying from those cancers than the general population. That means what we do as either a volunteer or as a paid on call or as a full-time firefighter, we have a greater risk, and we need to be proactive, not reactive to those risks. Okay. Let me get this video started. And this is Dr. Martinez. He did this really interesting study with a fluorescent powder. I used that powder as in a product called Glow Germ to teach how germs are spread, but this was really fascinating to see how much those carcinogens that are in and on our turnouts can get spread to our friends and family.
County Fire Rescue Department. They were very interested in understanding about how what they did for work was impacting their health, specifically how maybe being a firefighter or an EMS responder may increase their risk for cancer. One of the things we were trying to do today is figure out, is there a way we can demonstrate how maybe cancerous materials are transferred from a fire incident response back to the fire station and personal vehicle. And so today was really a teaching exercise and a scientific exercise of trying to see how we demonstrate where soot, represented by this invisible dye, might be transferring from when they go to respond to a fire and come back to the fire station. So the goal today was trying to be able to identify, can we feasibly show how soot is transferred from a fire incident response back to their truck and back to the fire station.
Okay, I want to stop it here for just a second because this is a little bit older of a video, and when we go to watch this, we'll see him start to take off his gear. We'll start to put it in the vehicle without doing the level 1 wash down. A lot of fire departments around here are doing it. I hope your departments are doing this, is that before you even start going back into your cab, you stand out there with a hose and get washed down to get a lot of these contaminants off, because it's really amazing to see how far these contaminants can spread and who they can affect. continue watching. So those are just sort of our normal activities of daily living. And I'm just going to click through because it's a 5-minute video, and we all know how we get coffee, get water, work on at the kitchen table. And then the doctor starts taking that black light out, and you can see without a proper wash down that even though they are wearing their civilian clothes, it is everywhere. You bringing it back to the station, bringing it back to our living quarters, onto everything that we use and touch.
It was really an eye-opening experience for us because I anticipated.
And we know it was going to spread around, but the big one I was really concerned about was when, we're talking about the firefighters and not the station, but who comes to the station? It's our families. It's our kids. It's our wives. It's our husbands. And we also, go in our personal vehicles and go home. So here's an
opportunity to have a child with us today to be able to demonstrate maybe what happens in passing some of that soot using a soccer ball. So we were able to have a child play with one of the EMS firefighters with that soccer ball, and we were able to see second degree.
That kid is covered. And that means that we need to reduce our risk. So not only it doesn't hurt us, but it doesn't hurt them, our own families. So let's prevent it. And how can we do that? And I firmly believe F500 is part of that. So anytime we have a risk, anytime we go onto an incident, we have to size up our risk. And when we're talking about cancer, we're talking about temperatures. We're talking about exhaustion. We're talking about the smoke and soot that comes with the burning synthetics, because we all know the modern fire environment is very different from 100 years ago. We have a lot more potential energy stored in the synthetic materials that surround our house. And thankfully, we're finally understanding that trauma and stress have a direct impact on our mental health and our physical health, including cardiac health. So it's extreme temperatures. Obviously, fires get very hot, and we get very hot in our turnouts, and we sweat. Well, once we start sweating, our pores open up. When our pores open up, we have the ability to absorb carcinogenic materials a lot faster. And then once the pores close, they close back up. Think about the last fire you might have been on, and how long did you smell fire in your pores, in your hair, in your nose? I mean, how many times after you blow your nose and you still have little black flecks a couple days later? We need to find a way to stop that. And the extreme temperatures make our skin a little bit more permeable. I don't know about your areas, but around here, I live in Oregon, we are having a tremendous issue with understaffing. We are not having, there was an opening at a fire department recently, and I think they had 5 positions open and only about 10 people applied. And so they're having a very difficult time getting calls, and we're going up to more calls. There's more calls, less people, more work. So a lot of us are working overtime. That overtime leads to exhaustion because you might be working 24 hours on, 48 hours off, or the 48-96. Those can be exhausting, and we know that exhaustion directly impacts our health, specifically our cardiac health, and I'll get more to that. So as I said, I've been in the business for about 30 years, and when I started, if you had a clean helmet, you were a newbie, and you wanted to get your yellow or orange helmet, whatever color you had, you wanted it to get that good black color because it meant you were in a fire. Now we understand that all of that black stuff is bad for us. And so we need to do some good decontamination before we get back into the rig, before we get into the rigs and go back to the stations. Every smear of a little bit of soot does give us a prolonged exposure, and that prolonged exposure increases our risk. PTSD and depression, trauma, stress, we see a lot of things that the general public shouldn't see. And we're a different breed, and a lot of us, go through life and can handle it. But there are times, there are those calls, there are everyday stressors that increase our risks of cardiac disease, of cancer, and then getting that diagnosis of cancer is devastating. I have a friend I work with. He was diagnosed at 51 with prostate cancer. He's a lifelong career firefighter, and he's gone through treatment, but we sat and talked the other day, and he said some of the worst part was getting that diagnosis and how depressed he got thinking about his job and the cancer and his family. And I saw this statistic that firefighters are twice as likely to die by suicide than the general population. That's kind of sad. So in 2023, the #1 cause for line of duty deaths for firefighters were cardiac issues. We know contributing factors. We know high heat contributes to stress. We know that sleep deprivation leads to stress, leads to physical exhaustion. We have been talked about the smoke and soot and how that's carcinogenic, but we also, the smoke takes away the oxygen, so the oxygen doesn't get to the heart, so the heart is stressed. Trauma, seniority. As you get older, you break down. I mean, right now, last time I did a forcible entry, my partner was like, oh, my knees, and I was like, oh, my back. So the seniority, it can wear on you. And of course, pre-existing health and issues and poor diet. No one ever said that the American diet was the best for you. So all of this combines. And if we can take the heat away, if we can make our jobs a little bit easier, if we can take the smoke and soot away, we can make ourselves healthier, not only for cancer, but also for cardiac issues. So how do we combat them? 1, turnouts. Let's wear them and wear them properly. Make sure that they fit properly and that they are deconned properly. Wear your SCBA. I know we all like to play, and when our bottle goes out, that means that we don't get to play anymore. But we really need to stay on air and not be breathing in this toxic smoke. When we're done with our with extinguishment and overhaul, we need to wash down with our 1851 decon standard. We need to bag our gear. We need to go take a shower. And then when we do our laundry, we have to understand that we're touching contaminated stuff and shouldn't be, shouldn't be floofing it in the air. We should be wearing gloves and be very cautious on how we decontaminate. And then once again, we're family. We're the firefighting community family. We need to realize that depression and PTSD and risks are very prevalent in our profession, and we need to remove that stigma. And I think definitely the days of man up and don't talk about it, thankfully, seem to be ending. Okay. This is a video on how
encapsulator technology, the next generation of fire and hazard mitigation. First, we start with a simplified version of a single encapsulator agent molecule consisting of a hydrophilic polar head which loves water, dissolves in water, and a hydrophobic nonpolar tail which fears water and will do anything to get away from water. Once the EA molecules enter the water, they instantaneously and automatically orient with the nonpolar tails inward and the polar heads outward, forming millions of spherical micelles. Micelles travel towards and exit the nozzles, forming EA droplets. Micelles nearest to the surface of each droplet automatically break apart. The nonpolar tails orient outside the droplet, with polar heads on the surface, forming an EA skin on the surface of every droplet. In addition to the EA skin.
Okay, I wanted to pause it right here because this slide is a little bit of a misnomer. We had to animate this to show what a spherical micelle looks like. But if you can imagine that's a small water droplet and you have those tails sticking out ready to grab the ions and the free radicals that are at the smoke front. If that large water droplet were the size of the Earth, the spherical micelle on the inside would be the size of a pea. So think about that. You can count maybe 20 or 30 spherical micelles in there. Really, it would be millions or trillions of spherical micelles within each water droplet. And then as the water droplet breaks apart, each one of those little polar heads, once it gets to the air, it will invert and put those nonpolar tails out.
There are millions of molecular spherical micelles within each droplet.
So this was a gentleman that Chief Miller was using used F500 to brought it to his department, and this is a testimonial from him.
What department are we with today? The Belmont Fire Department, Lieutenant Newman. So I see we did a burn box with a fire. Can you give us a scenario? What you saw going?
Basically, what we did when we went in, we had the typical hay and pallet fire. Being that it's a Connex box, we can get it pretty hot in one of the rooms. We've got it up to about 1,100 degrees. When we put the F500 on the product, it cooled the room instantly from 1,000 to about 160 degrees almost immediately. But the weird part is I've trained a lot in this building. I've lit in hundreds of fires in here. I could still see the people standing next to me. There was little to zero steam, and it was pretty wild. It was definitely a game changer in the product, and it'll definitely be on our trucks. So, thank you.
So foam is a mechanical separator that separates the vapors coming off the fuel or whatever fuel is from the oxygen. You have to have a blanket, and then the PFASs are the ones that kept that blanket to self-seal. Encapsulator agents were completely different. And I want you to think back. Think back, you're a firefighter in about the early 1800s, 1850s or so. And all you've ever known about putting fires out is that you need to use water. Water is the only agent that you know, and suddenly somebody comes up and says, hey, I have this powder, and this powder will put the fire out. We as firefighters will go, yeah, right. I think of water and dry chemical is the same way I think of water, foams, and encapsulator agents. It is a completely different technology that works differently, so we have to get our mind around this is not foam. It looks like foam, we apply it like foam, it proportions like foam, but it's the worst foam ever because it does not mechanically separate. It chemically down at the molecular level takes care of all four legs of the tetrahedron at the same time. It encapsulates, it has rapid heat reduction. We don't get steam, we get warm water mist, and we get that free radical interruption. I'm going to go into that a little bit further. Okay. Now, NFPA 18A Section 77 Spherical Micelle Stability Test Protocol. Spherical micelles are everywhere. You can see spherical micelles in laundry detergent. As a matter of fact, if you can see me and showing my picture, this is micellar water I took from my daughter's makeup cabinet. It's all the same thing. However, the F500 is different is because the spherical micelles are stable in the presence of high heat. So this Section 77 says if you are going to be a water additive for fire control and vapor mitigation, we developed this encapsulator agent protocol to make sure that if someone else comes out with a spherical micelle, that it meets this stability test. I love this video. This is a demonstration of a video of obviously burning tires, and they're going to use something called a TKO nozzle, which is basically an adductor, a mini adductor on the end of the nozzle. So we're going to go ahead and watch this. And I want you to note when we're watching this, and I might slow it down to half speed so that we can definitely see this, and I'll play it in real time. But if you look at that fire right now, if you see the flame and you see right where the flames diminish and that black stuff starts, that's the flame front. That's where all the free radicals are on the flame front. And as they are coming out, the negatives are trying to attack the positive, and they're bringing together. And then they start making your benzenes, your pyrenes, all of your polyaromatic hydrocarbons, all of your bad stuff. That is what is in that smoke. You have smoke, you have soot, and you have toxic gases. That's what's going on right there at the combustion process. So I'm going to go ahead and continue playing this. If my computer would not do that. I'll only put it back up to full speed. Oh, I'm sorry. Technology issues. Okay. Got a good fire going. See, there's that TKO nozzle.
Ready? Yeah.
Okay, checking your pattern. I'm going to stop it right there. The combustion process is still going on. Where's the black smoke? There's warm water mist right there. This is, I believe it was a 1% solution. But look at the fact that these water molecules, because they're so dense, interrupt the cohesion or coalescence of those free radicals at the flame front. So you don't get the soot, you don't get the toxic smoke, you don't get the toxic gases. And the other thing I love about this video is how fast extinguishment actually occurs. So we'll watch it real time. One thing about encapsulator agents is you can't just sit there. Good firefighting techniques, constantly moving around. In just 34 seconds, he's able to split the tires and move them with his gloved hand because it's so rapidly cooled. And now he's going to just continue his good overhaul. And he didn't use very much water. This could have easily just been a booster tank. You didn't even have to have a hydrant. So the rest of it. Okay. Laval Fire Department in Canada looked at F500. They didn't look for it for the firefighting capabilities of it. They wanted to see what kind of agents would decrease the carcinogenic materials that are coming out of smoke, because they had a firefighter. There we go. And forgive me, I've only had middle school French, so this firefighter died of cancer at 54 years old. He had had it for a few years and died of lung cancer, and the Laval Fire Department wanted to reduce the carcinogenic toxin exposure, and they wanted to honor their fallen firefighter. So this is a pretty long video, and it'll be up on the webinar, and it's up on the HCT website. But I'm going to move it to about 4 minutes while I'm working on this video so that it does move. I want to talk about how they did it. They did 3 separate burns, and they I'm sorry, 6 burns. And burns 1 and 2 were vent limited, and they wanted to see the amount of toxin exposures there were. And then burns 3 and 4 had free burning, had well ventilated. You know, when you do an experiment, you want to make sure that everything, you only turn in one variable to make sure that that one variable is what you need. You don't do multiple variables. So when they were having these firefighters attack, it was the same attack crew. It was the same line. It was the same tactic. It was the same amount of water and PSI going through. The only thing that changed between burns 1 and 2 was, one, the firefighters had their hoods removed and taken in bags. So they lit fire 1 in the vent limited room. They fought the fire. They extinguished it. They came back out. The scientists took their hoods off, gave them a fresh, clean one. They went to burn 2, which the same fuel load, same dimensions of the room, lit the same way, same crew went in again. They went ahead and fought the fire, extinguished it, then came back out, removed the hoods. Then they went to burns 3 and 4, same thing. This was a free burning, well ventilated structure. Hoods 1 came off after burn 3, the hoods came off after burn 4, and they tested them. The other thing that they noticed when that we're doing this, and note that this is in a very rural area in Laval, Canada, there's not a very great big water supply. And I know many of us work on rural combination departments where you may just get 1 or 2 responders on that first arriving engine. And we want to get rapid knockdown. So we want to do a transitional attack so that we can increase the survivability and make the environment safer for the victims that might be in there and for the firefighters that are coming to fight that future. So they allowed these 2 rooms to become free burning, and they're doing a transitional attack with an 1 3/4 line running a 1% solution of F500. And you'll notice that they're getting rapid knockback through the window. I mean, obviously it's a deep-seated fire. They're not going to be able to get all the way back into there. You're going to have to get some crews in there. But notice that as they are spraying in the window, that black smoke is gone. You're still getting a little bit of tan smoke, but a lot of that vapor, that material that's coming out, is water vapor. It is not steam. So you're making that environment safer and better for the crews that are inside. You're making visibility better. So when visibility is better, it's safer for us to be able to see where we're going to fight the fire. We're making the environment safer and cooler for not only any entrapped victims, but for the firefighters going inside as well. So they get that knocked back, and here in just about 30 seconds, you're going to see the interior crew finish extinguishment. So that was burns 1 and 2. And then they'll have burns 3 and 4 later. So there's burn 1, burn 2. And they talk to the crews, the officer in charge, the firefighters, all in the Laval report gave their reviews of what happened. And they noticed that they had extinguishment without heat, increased visibility, and the secondary fire was extinguished by deflection. There was less residual smoke after fire 2. Less smoke, less toxins, less soot, less danger. Here's fires 3 and 4. Once again, visibility increase, less smoke generation, less heat, easier to extinguish. But what happened to those hoods? And this is what I love. So on the very right, the red, those are all of your methyl ethyl polyaromatic hydrocarbon carcinogens. It's in French because, well, they did this in Canada. But we can understand that naphthalene is naphthalene, and benzene and anthracene are the same. So fire 1 and fire 2, fire 1 was water only, fire 2 was F500. Fire 3 and fire 4, same thing. Water, fire 3, fire 4. They tested the hoods to see what the decrease in the polyaromatic hydrocarbons were. If you look at the top one, naphthalene, between fire 1 and fire 2, which was event limited, they had a 71% reduction in that polyaromatic hydrocarbon. Well ventilated, 18%. There were some where it went down to 90%. Pyrene, a 90% reduction. And in other cases, it went completely away. They couldn't find or evidence of those toxins. So we know F500 encapsulates and prevents the coalescence or cohesion of those free radicals to make the methyl ethyl bad stuff. If that stuff works and to decrease our risk, doesn't that make us safer? And that's what I want us to do. I want us to be safer. Now, 30 firefighters agree. If you get 30 firefighters and stand them outside on a bright, beautiful day, and you say, hey, the sky is blue, you're going to have one or two go, nope, it's gray. There's a cloud right over there. 30 firefighters agree that the encapsulating agent reduced the exposure to carcinogens. That's what they wanted. That was the goal, and that's what they wanted to honor their fallen brother. What they also found was that it was also effective for Class B, Class C, and Class D fires. And where sometimes, well, Class C and D, you don't necessarily supposed to use water. You can. For those reasons, the Laval firefighters are moving forward with the use of encapsulating agent, and they use it on every fire to reduce those risks. Clemson University did a three-part study, third-party testing. We gave them the F500, told them how to mix it, and they did some testing for us. The first one they did a toluene study. So they went into a hood and they did an inverted funnel over a burning dish of toluene, and they wanted to see how much soot would come up on the inverted funnel. When up through the funnel, they would do side stream sampling of the gases, and then they sprayed the smoke with water, and then they sprayed the smoke with the encapsulating agent. And what they found was that there was a 97% reduction in soot. There was a 98.6 decrease reduction in toxic smoke, a 68% increase in visibility. Now, I look at that, I'm like, wait a minute. Toxic soot has terphenyls, fluorine derivatives, indene derivatives. I'm sorry, I'm not a chemist, cyclohexanols. Those are what we would classify as methyl ethyl bad stuff, carcinogenic. But just by spraying a 1% solution of this encapsulating agent, we can make our jobs safer. Why aren't we running? Why aren't we running to this? And it's not, what I like to say about it, it's not me saying it as an encapsulator psychologist who, works with HTT. Clemson saying this. We didn't have anything to do with the testing. They just gave it to them. We got the results back. So it reduced smoke and soot and vapor reduction because it interrupts the vapor phase combustion by free radical coalescence. Okay. It is fluorine free. There is no active fluorinated ingredient in F500. Okay. So the EPA tested it. They have found it is certified green. A multinational company also tested it. It's used as a surface washing agent. You can spray it on the ground and it'll eventually biodegrade. It's recognized as a biodegradable substance for all applications, marine, freshwater, soil species. It's fine at the 1 to 3%. Now, I'm not going to tell you it doesn't have harm if you do have it in higher concentrations, and I'll give you an example. You're working in a wildland setting and you have a 5-gallon bucket with you. You accidentally knock it over and a whole bunch of it leaches into a decent sized stream. Well, and other than being encapsulating agents, it's also a surfactant. Well, as the higher concentration of that spill in that little area, if you have fish or anything else that breathes with gills, the very concentrated F500 in the water, greater than a 3 to 5%, will start, just like any other surfactant, will wash the proteins off the gills and the gills will stick together and the fish will suffocate. They're not dying because of they're toxic. It was just the effect of the concentrate in the water solution. Now, the good thing about it is that as water flows and becomes more and more dilute, once we get down to about less than 0.5%, all danger goes away. Matter of fact, they've also said that it's non-corrosive. It's got a pH of 7 when mixed with water. It's neutral, so you can use it to neutralize hazardous substances that normally sometimes you wouldn't want to put water with, or you needed expensive other chemicals to clean up. One thing else was not on one of the slides, but it is also considered food safe. So you can spray this around orchards. You can spray this around farms. And if it gets on the material, if it's on that less than 3%, if it's 0.5% or less, it's considered food safe. Now, I wouldn't go drink it. It will, if you do drink a concentrated bit, you will get some GI upset, but definitely it's not something that, oh, I got a little whiff of it, now we have to act like it's a hazardous materials and we need to dike and dam it and we need to rinse it off and we need to save the rinsing agent. No, and you could rinse hydrocarbons off of a highway and just let it biodegrade. The great thing about the spherical micelle is the spherical micelle will hold on to the hydrocarbon, and our owner likes to say that if a spherical micelle is on the ground and holding onto a hydrocarbon, the Pac-Man is the size of a huge basketball coming to eat that small spherical micelle and actually biodegrade it and make it non-traceable in the environment. So how can we make it? I like to say it's application agnostic. It's a drop-in replacement. It does not replace good firefighting tactics. It does not replace good practices. It's just a drop-in to make the water work better. One, you can put it in a water can. Take your typical 2.5 gallon water can, put in a 10-ounce bottle of F500 to get your 3% solution. And believe it or not, that would put out a 2.5 water can can put out probably a battery the size of that's probably a small e-bike battery. You can batch mix it into your tank. Climb up on top or however you get into your booster tank and just pour the batches in so you can get up to a 1 to 3%. Manual adductors, going back to the days where you had your adductor and you had to have it at 300 psi so you get the good Venturi effect. Matter of fact, recently Boise Fire came on board with F500, and the way they were using AFFF is that they had 2 5-gallon pails of AFFF with a manual adductor and a 95 gallon per minute adductor with a 95 gallon per minute nozzle as well. They simply took off the AFFF and put on the F500. We did some training with them. They understand how to use it because you have to use it a little bit differently than foam because foam you wanted that gradual blanket. F500 we want to actually agitate it. So that's manual adductors. Now on your onboard proportioners, flush residual foam we got, and you can proportion it just like 1 to 3%, just like a foam. It's got the same consistency. I kind of wish it looked different than foam because some people treat it like foam, but once again, water to dry chem, foam to encapsulatory agents. And we do have several cities. This is just a very small sampling of who we have. We should put Boise on there. We not only do we have fire departments using this, we have Idaho National Laboratory has purchased some from us. It's a good product. It can be used in fixed systems for firefighting, but once again, that's a whole nother webinar for about how to use it for firefighting. I still want to go back to that Clemson report and show that we have that 97% reduction in soot. Go back to the Laval report. we didn't have anything to do with it at all. We just gave them the stuff and they ran the test. And we saw up to a 90% reduction in polyaromatic hydrocarbons that give us cancer and live on our skin for days after. To me, I'm just trying to get the word out because I want to make our job, our profession, our lifestyle safer, not only for us, but our families. And like me, I'm raising a fourth generation firefighter. So, all right. Heather, when we were going, did we have any questions come up in the chat?
I don't believe I see any, but if anyone would like to either open their microphone and make their question verbally, or if you prefer to use the Q&A box, please feel free to do either one.
Oh, I'm not seeing any attendees. So on that last slide, and when you get the certificate of attendance that Heather will send out later, there will be some contact information. You can always go to our website. We have worldwide representatives that will come out and make contact with you. You fill out the contact form. It will be sent to your regional manager, or so if you're in the Pacific Northwest, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana, that would be me and my husband. We would contact you, but there's others all around the country that would be able to contact you, answer questions for you. More than willing to come out and give you a demonstration, show you how it works. It does. Good firefighting techniques still work. You just have to make sure to remember it's not foam, so we don't apply it as a blanket like foam. So, but 1% solution on all structure fires would significantly reduce our hazards and our risks.
Thanks, everyone. If you have any questions after the fact, feel free to reach out to us, reach out to Jennifer anytime, and we'd be happy to discuss more.
All right, I'm not seeing any more. I don't see any hands raised.
Okay.